What the hell, South Carolina? You had to do it. You couldn't just stay calm. Lincoln's not even in the White House, and you had to go and do it. Welcome to Civil War in Hindsight. As always, I'm Lieutenant Tommy, and with me is Prospector Johnny. And this week, Prospector, well,
good news.
All of our hopes and all of our dreams since the election
to fruition
are coming
Everything
to
is calming down.
Coming to an end.
What do you mean an end? What's going on? What happened?
Well, the week's going to start off on December 14th with a Georgia legislature calling on South Carolina, Alabama, Florida, and Mississippi to send delegates to Georgia to be appointed on a committee to determine whether or not there should be a Southern Confederacy established.
So they're looking to leave the Union.
Yes, this South Carolina problem looks now to be spreading to several of the other southern states.
I mean, but they can't do that, right? There's rules.
There are rules, and I'm pretty sure it was made clear that secession isn't legal.
Right.
But it doesn't seem like the South cares.
Well, that's kind of the funny thing about uprisings and independence stuff. Like,
yeah, legality doesn't.
You don't
really
care
matter.
about the rules because you're leaving that spot. But so now South Carolina started their little thing where they were going to do their vote coming up, right?
Well, Johnny, thanks for bringing that up. That starts on December 15th.
Okay, and then but then everybody else.
Apologize, sorry, jumped
everybody
ahead.
else started following them along. How many states total?
Well, hold on a second. I did jump ahead a couple of days here,
okay.
So we'll go back.
Back up.
So back up. On December 15th, Lincoln writes a letter to North Carolina Congressman John A. Gilmer. And essentially, he's trying to explain to Gilmer his position and what's going on, and trying to get some Southern Democrats to calm down.
Right.
So in this letter to Gilmer, which is a private letter, he writes, "I have never been, am not now, and probably never shall be in the mood of harassing the people either north or south. You, sir, think that slavery is right and ought to be extended. We think it is wrong and ought to be restricted. For this, neither has any just occasion to be angry with the other." He's simply expressing, I don't have any intention, although his probably never is not the best wording. I don't think I would have wrote probably never.
But never say never is what you're supposed to do. Right?
Well, he's saying he doesn't have any intention of harassing anybody from the North or South on their political viewpoints. And he's saying that, yes, we differ, but just because we differ, there's no reason why we should be at odds with each other.
Yeah, agree to disagree.
Not at hostile odds.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's what being in a large society democracy means. That's why we vote stuff. We have, I guess, two sides. Three sides, maybe.
And speaking of voting, we've been waiting for it since the election, and since South Carolina said that they were going to call, their state senate to order and have a ruling here. It's there. On December 17th, South Carolina delegation meets to discuss secession.
Okay,
they're
what
going to
happens
meet
with this vote?
Well, they're going to meet first at the Baptist Church of Columbia in South Carolina, with a public convention. So this is held in public forum.
Okay.
The president of the convention, D.F. Jameson, would state, and I quote, "It is no less than our fixed determination to throw off a government to which we have been accustomed, and to provide no safeguards for our future security. If anything has been decided by the elections which has set us here, it is that South Carolina must dissolve the connections with the federal government as soon as possible." This is the opening statement to this convention.
So it starts out with, "Yep, we gotta go, everybody. We gotta get out of the Union."
D.F. Jameson would also go on to say that the written constitutions are worthless unless they are written at the same time and of the same heart and of the same mind as the people that they govern. So essentially,
I can agree with that.
But what he's saying is the Constitution of the United States that was written is null and void. We will write a new Constitution and should always be written. Essentially, what he's arguing is that a Constitution should be written essentially every election cycle.
Yeah. Yeah, update it.
They would call for a vote for secession and a committee to pass an ordinance of secession. This vote 169-0. In favor of
Against?
secession.
Oh.
No, in favor of secession.
So I assume that covers whatever, was it a 2/3 majority they needed or whatever?
Well,
They got
when
it.
it's
Whatever
when it's
they needed.
unanimous, when it's unanimous, I'm pretty sure
That
they get
passes.
it.
Oh, shoot.
The convention was ended slightly early due to a smallpox outbreak in Charleston, so the convention would reconvene the next day in Charleston, South Carolina.
They
at
didn't take
Institute
that as a
Hall.
sign from God,
Well, I was thinking the same thing when I read that. It should be here's your sign
right?
that maybe rethink that vote.
Yeah.
But essentially, as far back as December 17th, at least on paper, South Carolina has seceded. Now, they haven't made it official. They haven't made any public ordinance as of yet, but the
Right.
vote came in 169-0. Now, like I said, on December 18th, they would reconvene at Institute Hall. Commissioners from the delegation of Mississippi would arrive to see essentially what South Carolina's stance is and what they're going to do, to see what they might want to do in their state of Mississippi. The vote is reconfirmed by the Senate for secession and adopts a bill to arm the state. So now not only
Okay.
on the 18th have they reconfirmed the vote, but
Now
they're
they're
now
getting-
adopting a bill to arm the
Building
state.
up a military, basically.
In Washington, D.C., the United States Senate is calling for a formation of 13-member committee to report on the present condition of the country and to report back with a proposed bill.
You don't need 13 people for that. The condition of the country is bad.
It is very bad, although right now in the Senate, they don't know what's going on. They know that South Carolina is voting, but they don't know
They don't
that
know
they
the vote.
have voted
Yeah.
as of yet. A Kentucky senator by the name of Crittenden comes up with his own compromise that he proposes to the Senate floor, and I'm going to read this in its entirety. Is number one, slavery should be prohibited in all territories north of the 30-degree parallel line, and slavery should not be interfered with by Congress south of that line. When admitted as states, it should be admitted with or without slavery, depending upon that state's constitution, so allowing any new territory to be slave or free, depending on that state's constitution.
Now, does that also apply the 34th whatever parallel?
That's on the
restriction?
current. That is
That's
on
just
the current.
the current states.
That is for the current states. Yes. Congress could not abolish slavery in places under its exclusive jurisdiction. So basically, south of that 36-30 parallel line,
They have no
Congress can't
power
make
to
any.
do anything.
No power to abolish slavery. Congress could not abolish slavery in the District of Columbia so long as it existed in the nearby states, or without the consent of the inhabitants, or without just compensation. So this proposed part is that the D.C., the capital itself, will remain slave unless the states around it go free, or the Washington, D.C. pays due compensation for making it not slave.
Okay.
Congress has no power to hinder or transport the transportation of slaves from one state to another. So whether that slave is going from a slave state to a free state, Congress has no power to hinder that. Number 5, Congress should have no power to provide that the United States pay the owner full value of the fugitive slaves when officers were prevented from arresting the fugitives. So basically, if a slave runs away from Kentucky and gets up into Indiana, if Indiana prevents those slave hunters from getting that fugitive slave, Indiana has to pay them due compensation for that slave.
Man, they really wanted their slavery, huh?
That's what it sounds like. And the last one here is that no future amendments should affect the 5 preceding articles nor the sections of the Constitution permitting slavery. This compromise was obviously rejected outright by Congress, by both Republicans and Democrats. As for the Republicans, it's clear it's giving way too much control of slave territories in free states.
Right.
And of course, it's also allowing the expansion of slavery, which the Republicans
they
are very
were
much against.
Yeah, they don't want that.
And the Democrats were against it because, well, we don't want any restrictions on slavery at all.
Right. So it wasn't. It was too far for one direction and not far enough for the other part. So
Exactly.
man, that's how you compromise right there. That's why we elect these government officials.
And here we are, Johnny. The week's going to wind down on December 20th. It's official. South Carolina has an ordinance of secession. and I will read it verbatim, and I quote, "We, the people of South Carolina and the convention assembled, do declare and ordained, and it is hereby declared and ordained, that the ordinance adopted by us in this convention on the 23rd day of May, and the year of our Lord 1788, whereby the Constitution of the United States of America was ratified, and also all acts and parts of acts of the General Assembly of this state ratifying the amendments of the said Constitution are hereby repealed, and the Union now subsiding between South Carolina and other states under the name of the United States of America is hereby dissolved." Officially, the great Union of the United States, at least for South Carolina, is dissolved.
And so we got a big old hole in us now.
We got a big old hole in one of the original 13 colonies.
That's not great, because now what all those other states that started getting the idea of secession too, they might start following suit.
Well, I imagine Georgia's going to be pretty close because they're the next loudest vocal state.
Yeah.
And now they're all meeting. Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, and South Carolina are going to be meeting in the near future to discuss whether or not they want to form their own country, their own confederation of states.
So right now, when South Carolina's gone, what do they call themselves?
I guess the South Carolina, the country of South Carolina,
the country
yes.
of South Carolina now. And then they have to decide, okay, so if the other states do secede, now they have to decide if they're going to just be their own countries or if they're going to
join as one country.
United States Part 2?
Yes. There is a chant outside of South Carolina, outside of Charleston, where they are celebrating and they are chanting South Carolina is free and independent. Very reminiscent of the Revolution.
Yeah.
People outside of Boston where they're celebrating. In the evening of the 20th, the formal signing takes place in Institute Hall, and that's it. As far as South Carolina is concerned, as far as their government is concerned, they are now independent of the United States as a whole. There is one pro-union judge that is in South Carolina that speaks out. His name is James Louis Pettigrew, who says, and I quote, "I tell you there is a fire. They have this day set a blazing torch to the temple of the Constitution of Liberty, and we shall no more have peace." Yep.
So basically, this isn't gonna. They're going, but they're not going peacefully. Like it's not just gonna be a.
Well, this pro-union judge, he's saying because they're seceding, there's no way that they've set a fire. There's going to be war.
The secession won't. We're not going to let it go peacefully. So it's shaping up. We're looking at war with South Carolina now. The country. Are we gonna invade it? What about all the federal agents there?
I don't have answers for you yet on that.
This is a mess.
I want to remind you that we ended last week with South Carolina threatening that Buchanan should not send forces down to the federal forts in South Carolina, and that if they do, they can't guarantee they won't be attacked. But they promised that they wouldn't. They promised that they wouldn't attack them, before secession. But
well, now they seceded.
They've seceded.
What?
So I don't know. What are the odds over and under on them attacking one of the said forts? Well, that's it for this week in Civil War and Hindsight. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and join our other shows of Historic Hindsight and This Week in History.